Welcome back to the She Thrives Influential Women podcast. I am your host, Lori Murphy, and I am an empowerment coach for women. And today I am excited to have this amazing guest on our show, Amanda Ewers. I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. She is phenomenal. So what Amanda does, her business is she is into home and healing. So it's called Home and Healing Postpartum Wellness Services, healing families from beginning mentally, emotionally, and physically. And she is very passionate about teaching and building strong families. And it is an honor to have you here today to talk about who you are, what you do, and all of the things. Amanda, how are you?
I am wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. This is this is just so awesome, like how we met and how we're able to come together and do something so empowering to
I
just
know. I was just
women
saying
coming together
earlier.
and sharing knowledge. Like I just love it.
I know. I was like I said to you before we started, it's like ever since. So Amanda and I met at the Women Warrior Bomb Global Women's Conference on June 1st in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. She was one of the speakers. And when she was sharing her story, I just wanted to hear more. I wanted to know more about Amanda. So, I was excited when she agreed to be a part of this podcast because I was like, now I not only do I get to know more about Amanda, but so do you. Because this is a woman you want to know. She's got incredible energy. She's a lot of fun too.
Oh, thank you so much.
So, Amanda, tell us a little bit about yourself. You're a mom of two and a wife. Tell us a
Mhm.
little bit more about you.
Oh, well, gosh, I have my two kiddos, they're my world. Um, 11 and 12, they're going to middle school this year. So it's one is already in middle school, but my baby is going to middle school. So it's been a transition, I'd say, to go into a new phase of life with your kids. My husband and I, we've been together for 19 years. So um, we're going to go to Iceland this summer and kind of we're going to celebrate being together. And I'm going to bring him into my world because it's a speaker's retreat.
I was going
So
to say,
I've
are you
actually,
doing the speakers retreat with
yeah,
Jesse and Desiree?
yes.
Jealous.
So I'm going to bring hubby along and bring him into my world. And so that's really exciting. I've been in education. I have a master's degree in teaching, undergrad in applied sociology. So I love to do research and study people in organizations. That's kind of my forte. And I've worked in middle school, I've worked in college with child development and things like that. So I've got a little bit under my belt there. But after I had my kiddo, I I needed to do something different. I needed to still teach, but I needed to teach from my lived experience. And I needed to be able to serve people that were living in the same arena as myself. I needed to talk to women from the place that I had come from. The gap is what I'll call it. You're always learning from your experiences and someone's waiting for you to learn some stuff so that you can share it. And being a teacher, I mean, that's the core of what we do.
Mhm.
So I've set out in the last 10 years to just learn and educate. And it's been a very fulfilling journey. So I'm here in Minnesota and grew up on the East Coast. So that's a
Awesome.
little bit about me in a nutshell.
That's that's awesome. And Minnesota, my goodness, you came all the way to little New Jersey from Minnesota. But that's the beauty about being able to be in this space, the coaching space, helping others, public speaking, is that you get to see all these different places and travel all over the world, and that's exciting.
Yeah, for sure. I've been to some really cool places. I got to go to Niagara Falls and speak. And this Iceland will be the fifth international speaking opportunity that I've had. So that's pretty cool. That's pretty exciting to just put yourself out there
Mm-hmm.
and make it happen.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your story, because you had mentioned that you are teaching from a place of your own personal experience. A lot of what you do is work with postpartum wellness.
Mhm.
So if you don't mind sharing a little bit about your own personal journey.
Yeah,
um,
of course. So, I have the two kids, and after my daughter was, good, there was no problems with pregnancy. Um, I was able to nurse. I had gone through, I lost my job a month before she was born. So there was, that's hard to go through that loss, but then it's, how do I reframe this? I now have the opportunity to stay home with her without restriction. Um, so that was good. But my husband ended up getting a job in Tennessee. And so when my daughter was 3 months old, we just packed up and moved from Iowa to Tennessee. And there we were, just us, our little family. And I found a church, I found a mom's club, I got myself plugged in as much as I could and got myself a part-time job and ended up pregnant again. And so I didn't have a whole lot of trouble with my daughter, but with my son, things were different. I didn't really have that support system that I had initially with my daughter. And my husband's schedule changed, and I just knew that things were a little bit harder. But after I had him, things didn't really get better. So I had postpartum depression, and it was quite some time before I was able to get the diagnosis. Um, and a lot of that was, what are people going to think? I'm supposed to come home and just love this baby. And I was really struggling to bond. We weren't nursing. I was trying to nurse. He wasn't latching. We had a consultant come in. Um, things they just weren't the same as it was when I had my first. And I was really struggling.
mm,
I'd gained a lot of weight. Um, and again, I didn't have a support system. I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't taking care of myself. I was blaming myself for my son getting sick because I wasn't able to nurse him. And so there was just a lot of feelings wrapped up in that.
mhm.
I was able to nurse my daughter for 6 months with no problem. And then my son, it was probably, I think it was 8 weeks of just, why am I doing this? I'm not doing anything for him. And it was painful because that's something that we're taught as women that we're supposed to be able to naturally do for our children. Like our body is supposed to naturally produce food for them. And I wasn't able to. And that rocked me. Because I felt like I was failing my child and that I wasn't able to bond with him.
Mm.
And then it just kind of spiraled into just feeling the guilt. The It was heavy. It was just really heavy. And
Sure.
I didn't grow up with a strong female community. And I mentioned that when we were at the conference. It was amazing to be in a room of powerful women that had a story, that were so strong to get up there and share, and to see what they had overcome, and just the energy, the vibrance,
Oh God, it
you
was
know?
powerful.
Yeah. And
It took a few days to come down from that.
yeah.
You know?
And I'm just thinking, seeing the young girls in the room, and I'm going, I didn't have that. I didn't have a sister to call and to, hey, this is what I'm going through. Is
Mm,
this normal? Do you have any tips for me?
mm,
I ended up being isolated. And I knew I had to get help.
yeah.
So that kind of led me to what I do today. For the last, my son just turned 11. And so for the last 10 plus years, I've been saying, how can I learn everything I possibly can about postpartum, postpartum depression, postpartum relationships? How do I learn everything I possibly can so that women aren't having to go through so long questioning, so that their partners know how to identify that their partner is going through something? And I've learned that men experience postpartum depression. I wouldn't have thought that my husband was experiencing anything, but half of women that are experiencing postpartum depression, their partners will also experience it. And we're talking about 1 in 7 women will experience postpartum depression. That's staggering to me, to think that you have that many people, and then half of those, their partners are also suffering. And I'm just like, I'm mind blown. And so when I got myself through um, my illness, I decided that I was going to help one woman to feel as good as I felt in that moment, because I found a community. I learned about personal development. I didn't know what that was. What does personal development look like? What is that? You know? And my kids are old enough now that I see the impact that my personal development has had on them.
mm.
And I don't think we give that enough credit. That when they're young, when they're babies, when they're in utero, they are still forming memories. You are still creating an impact.
Mm-hmm.
And the work that you do on yourself, you might not see it for 10 years.
Right.
It's not an immediate reward. And we want everything to be immediate.
Oh, yes.
So growth takes
Instant gratification.
Yes.
Yep.
And so going through something so deep, and it took time to pull myself out of it. And I said, I've got to be able to share. I've got to be able to share.
Yeah.
And that's where I am today, is I'm sharing the skills, the tools, the knowledge, the support, the community, everything that I know that helped me, the stuff I've learned from research. And the pandemic also added elements to all of this.
Sure.
Just last year, the FDA finally approved medication specifically for postpartum depression. I'm just like, wait, what? It's 2024.
And they're just now
Yeah.
addressing this
Yeah.
ongoing illness that's been going on for women. And as you mentioned, men
Mhm.
for decades and centuries. And, you know, that's a problem.
Yes, 100%.
That's a problem.
Mhm.
Um, so how many years have you now been invested in teaching and guiding and helping women and families work through postpartum depression?
Someone asked me that the other day, and I said, this has been a journey from day one. And the way that I helped myself get through postpartum depression was I did a Beachbody home program. I let Shaw T kick my butt for a couple of months. I changed my nutrition. I got part of a community, and I was like, okay, so take away the company aspect of it. What was it that I did differently to create this where I am today? And so it was the system. It wasn't just one particular thing. It was a combination of things. It was the changing how I ate, just being more aware of how I was fueling my body
Mm,
instead of comforting my body. So I had to change the language on that. Um, Moving my body, not working out, not, pumping iron or whatever people want to call it, right? Like
right.
I was moving my body so that I could move with my kids.
Hmm.
I had two, I had to chase around.
Oh, yeah.
And then it was, what am I doing to take time for myself? And what type of relationships am I allowing myself to be a part of? Now, some people don't have healthy families.
Mm,
And I had to separate myself from certain people in my family because they were causing more stress
right.
than I could tolerate. I couldn't give what I didn't have. I
Mhm.
needed to be poured into. Do you
Right.
remember? Do you remember at the conference somebody said, I want you to dump your cup?
Yeah.
Dump your cup right now because we're going to fill it up.
I loved that. Yes,
And oh my gosh, when we left there, we were overflowing.
we were.
We were overflowing. And sometimes we have to do that in our relationships and our families. And we have to just say, you know what? This cup has got a whole lot of mud in it right now. I just need to clear the mud, clear the muck, and just start over.
Right.
I need to do something fresh and new. And I think that's just what I allowed myself to do.
Hmm.
But it wasn't like a complete overhaul. And when people go into some of these programs, they think, I have to just completely change my life. You do, but it's not as intimidating as the mental illness constantly beating you up.
Mm,
And I had to just reframe some things in my mind.
sure.
Like the whole nursing, the inability to nurse. It wasn't me.
Hmm.
My son had acid reflux. So every time we're trying to nurse, just it may have been the angle that I was holding him.
Uh-huh.
Or after I fed him, he needed to be moved a different way or something. And we can't process those little minute thoughts when we have all these big, flashing lights going off in our head all the time.
Hmm.
And that's what it feels like when you're going through something so heavy like depression. And there's multiple levels of it. Um, so I've been doing this for, I'd say 10 years. And I've worked with women in a lot of times I'm really struggling in my relationship.
Uh-huh.
how did you, and they'll ask me, how did you do it? Like, how are you still in this relationship for this long after you went through something? So if you don't mind today, I'd love to share some of that with your listeners.
Absolutely. I think that that would be awesome because I was going to ask you to dive into that a little bit more.
Yeah.
I don't think those are things that people think about until they're in it, and then they feel lost because they don't know the direction to go in.
Mhm.
So, yeah, let's dive into that a little bit.
So one of the things I already said about the statistics, we've got 1 in 7 women. Some studies will say 1 in 10.
Mhm.
But that's our numbers are underreported. This is just what we know about. And we can talk about the inequalities and things like that, but just looking at what we do know,
Mhm.
1 in 7 women are suffering.
Mhm.
Then we know that there are men that are also suffering from it. Okay. Now, the education piece, the first 2 weeks is baby blues. Beyond that is when we start getting into the depression state. And they used to say, well, we don't know if there's any precursors that will determine if someone's going to be more likely to have it or not.
Mhm.
We're now seeing research that says differently. Like if you have a history of depression, you're more likely, but you can still develop if you don't.
Gotcha.
Now, men don't typically show signs until 3 to 6 months. And it's a lot harder to diagnose because men aren't aware, for one. And it just seems like added stress. It just seems like they're stressed.
Mhm.
But we have to be able to help our partners. We have to know our partners so that after you have a baby or after some life change, if your partner is acting differently, we need to be able to advocate for them.
Sure.
We need to be able to say, hey, Lori, I've noticed you just don't seem like yourself. Hey, Lori, do you want to just maybe go for a walk today? You know,
Yeah.
or why don't you go take a warm shower? Just let me help out today,
Mhm.
you know? And maybe you're short tempered. Is everything okay? You know, I
Yeah.
joke, do you need a cheeseburger and a nap? Because sometimes we just need to eat and go to sleep.
Hungry, angry, lonely, tired.
Yes. And
Halt.
yes,
Yep.
yes, yes. And it will paralyze you if you are going through the stuff and you don't feel seen and heard.
Mhm.
And your partner is the person in your life that you depend on above a lot of other people, especially if you don't have a strong family unit.
Right.
You rely on your partner.
Right.
Now, if you can't rely on your partner, the likelihood that your relationship is going to survive diminishes. And I've seen statistics anywhere from 40 upwards to 60% of relationships where a partner is going through postpartum
Mhm.
will end.
Oh, wow.
Now we're breaking families
Yeah.
because we didn't know what to look for. I had a gentleman share with me that him and his wife, they had 3 children. And she became a different person
Mhm.
after each one. And he felt like he no longer had a place. And she was mean to him. And he didn't know how to help her. And now he has a torn relationship with his oldest daughter because she just sees that his dad walked out on mom.
Right.
Because mom was so defensive all the time. What if we knew that we could go to the doctor with her? What if we knew that we could say, she's acting different? What if we knew that we could just advocate for the people that we love and get them the help that they need? We should want to.
Right.
A lot of people just don't know what to say, when to say it.
Sure.
What am I looking for? How are they eating? How are they moving their body? How are they sleeping? Are they getting time for themselves? And what support are they getting? So think Nest. And if you go to my website, homeandhealing.com, there's a free download for you that will put all this information in print so that you have it right there, so that you know these are the 5 things that everybody should be doing, men and women, pregnant, not pregnant, whatever. It doesn't matter. Everybody should be doing these 5 key things for overall wellness.
Sure.
But if you're trying to take care of another human, it is much more important that we're doing those things. We can't lose ourselves. And that's part of the peace in the relationship.
Right.
We lose ourselves.
That makes a lot of sense. And I don't think a lot of people, especially if they're in denial of where they're at, can fully understand where their partner is at.
Yes.
Because like you said, most men aren't even aware that they may be in a postpartum depression state. Because I'll be honest with you, that was news to me today to hear that men are going, they get it too, because it's not talked about.
Yeah. It will look like apathy. It will look like isolation, working more, engaging in risky behaviors. Maybe they come home from work and they generally might have a drink. Maybe they're drinking a little bit more. It looks like they're just stressed out sometimes. But sometimes it feels like I'm over here raising this kid by myself. What are you doing? And that because we get defensive. We're like,
Right.
hey, I didn't have this baby by myself.
Right.
We also have to understand that there's a generational difference too. And we're going to see some of these trends change, but like my husband is a couple years older than me. And so for him, the man is the one that goes to work, goes home and all of that. And then they come home and they do contribute by, being with the kids and stuff like that. But it's a difference. There's just a different way that men saw their role in the family.
Right.
And we've seen a lot of times where people will have children hoping that it will fix the relationship, but we haven't laid the groundwork for, well, what if something happens?
Oh, yeah.
How do we navigate that?
Mm-hmm.
How do we ensure that you're not losing yourself in this new role, that this new identity, because you are Amanda, you are whatever it is that you do, but once you have children, now you do earn another title. You become mom.
Mm-hmm.
That does change your relationships. No matter where you are, now you have a new identity, a new role, a new responsibility, men and women both. And we just think that women are the only ones that are experiencing this. And I know a lot of people will disagree with me, but the research is there to show men need the support too. Men need to be recognized that this
100%.
is also a huge life-changing event that is happening for them. And if they don't have strong maternal relationships themselves,
Mm-hmm.
they don't know what they don't know.
Right. Right. That makes a lot of sense.
So my goal is to help educate on this, to help say, hey, how do we support our partner? How do we advocate for our partner?
Mm-hmm.
What are the questions we need to ask? Make sure when she's going for that 6-week checkup, you go with her. Make sure that she doesn't forget to say how she's really feeling, that she doesn't just put the shades on and say, I'm fine,
Right.
because that's what we do. We like to carry that, our shield, our cape, our
Yep.
crown. I
Yep.
got this.
Mm-hmm.
But it gets really heavy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it is okay. It's okay to ask for help.
Now, when somebody is going through these struggles, let's say, the wife is going through her postpartum depression and she feels that she can't ask for help and the husband is struggling, where would you recommend they start for seeking help?
Always talk with your OBGYN or your family physician. You can even talk to your pediatrician because they will have resources in your communities of where to go to.
Mm-hmm.
In my local area, I have, resources available here. So if someone comes to me and they're like, hey, I'm looking for this, who should I talk to? Then I'm going to point them in that right direction. I'm going to point them to people that I know and I trust.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so always the starting point is always going to be that doctor that you're working with intimately in that time. So, you're going to see your OBGYN annually.
Mm-hmm.
And for that first year, that should be your contact. So that first year postpartum, your OBGYN should be your contact or your pediatrician.
Okay. And there are so many different ways that I think that like postpartum depression can manifest for a woman, a man. So let's
Absolutely.
say that you're a new mom and you're not 100% sure what it is you're feeling and
Mm-hmm.
not sure if you really need help. What would you say would be that if they were to need help with awareness, self-awareness?
Mm-hmm.
Where can they start with that self-awareness? Like, what would be like the first indication that they may be going down a downward spiral with this, depression and that it'll just keep getting heavier? How can they catch it?
Yeah. So one of the first things is mood. How is your mood? And and not just like, I have 3 hours of sleep, and we go through that a lot. But, are we over the top with our mood? So, if you ever have PMS, think about that on a little bit more of an escalated scale.
Oh
Okay.
no.
So, I mean, for some people, that's like, oh, that's dangerous. But
For anyone around me, that would be, I pray for you.
so you, because because of the hormones and everything changing, it does make a difference. That's why we say mood is one of those first things, right? Um, some women might find themselves at the end of the day sitting in a closet crying. Their husband might walk in the door and they're just immediately yelling, angry, like very short-tempered, um, inability to focus, just everything just seems too much. Like, that you need to go outside and you need to walk, or you haven't interacted with people. Like, if you're not letting people come over, if things are starting to pile up, if you're not asking for help, it never hurts to have a conversation. People fear having those conversations. People fear, what will people think? We have to let go of that.
Right.
We have to normalize this conversation.
Sure thing.
And so if you're feeling different, if your mood is changing, if you're just feeling like, I don't have patience, I'm tired, my coffee has been warmed up 12 times and I've not, you know, the baby is fine if you just let them cry for a few minutes
Mhm.
so that you can go enjoy, like, sip your coffee. The baby's okay. And a lot of times we don't do that. We put everyone else's needs first for everyone else, everyone else, everyone else.
Mhm.
And then we've got muddy water.
Sure.
We have to be able to say, I don't feel like myself.
Right.
Is this something that I should investigate more?
Absolutely. And from the man's aspect, because
Mhm.
again, I mean, I think that because it's not talked about enough, they might not even know what's going on with them. What would be a first indicator to them that maybe they're struggling too?
They're checked out. It can be that simple. If you're avoiding going home, if you are coming home and you don't really want to interact with the baby, if you notice that just you're prioritizing other things over your family, um, wanting to sleep a lot more, um, and again, that 3 to 6 month mark is when men will generally start showing those signs.
Mhm.
Um, and if your partner is overwhelmed, you're also absorbing that energy.
Yes.
Just check in for yourself. Men don't go to the doctor. I don't know. Men just don't go to the doctor.
No, not often.
No. And so I encourage new dads. So in my local area, I have a monthly men's community meet, and I will be offering those virtual sessions coming soon. But we want men to know what they can be doing for themselves to also empower them to help their partners.
Okay.
And a lot of times we just don't have that knowledge. And so one of the things I encourage them to do is make sure, if you haven't already, that you've established care with a doctor
Sure.
for yourself. If you haven't already, because if that comes up, you need to have a point of contact. You need to have somebody that you can talk to. In some states, you need a referral um, to see a mental health therapist. Sometimes it's 4 months down the road. But generally, your primary care physician can at least get you started until you can see someone. They can have that conversation with you, get you pointed in the right direction.
Sure.
And you can always reach out to me if you have questions about, hey, is this something that I should look into more? Is this something I should explore? Are there some resources out there that maybe I could, in the meantime, check out? Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, out of curiosity,
Yeah.
along with your services, now do you, so you have basically a support group for the men in your community. Is
Mhm.
there one for women that you host as well?
Yes. Yes, I do. I do have an online community that I have for women, and I actually meet with women one-on-one,
That's my next.
and I do prenatal yoga classes, and I've been doing group fitness for 8 years here locally and online. And so I do have women at all stages that join me in those platforms as well.
That's awesome. So if you're not in, out in Minnesota, if you're here in New York, you can access the online, opportunities
Yes.
and be a part of. So you are very accessible,
Yes.
which is awesome. And I'm glad you mentioned the one-on-one, working together, because that was actually my next question. Um, is exploring, services and working with you.
Mhm.
Um, you do a lot to help across the board everybody.
Yeah. And the thing is, I remind people that I am enhancing your care. I want you to still work with your medical professionals. But if you're on a waiting list, if you just have questions,
Mm.
if you don't know the right questions to ask, if you're just curious, maybe you have a friend and you're or a sister and you're not sure and you want to help them out, that's what I'm here for. I'm a stepping stone for you. I'm that extra layer of support, the cherry on top, if you will.
That's a perfect way of describing it. I love it.
Yeah. So I help with the mental, emotional, and physical aspects as a complementary service to your existing care. So I work alongside professionals. I'll work with your professional, um, and just if that's something that you desire. So everything is there. The system is developed so that you are supported fully, and it's not just mom, it's mom and it's the family. It's a whole family supporting mothers mentally, emotionally, physically in their postpartum so that they can thrive while building healthy families.
That's awesome. Now, I know you mentioned your website earlier.
Mhm.
If you could provide your website one more time, I'm also going to put all of this in the description as well.
Mhm.
But what other way of contacting you? If somebody wants to reach out, message you, book a call with you, what other sources of contact are there for you?
Sure. So my website is homeandhealing.com. And on my website, there's the tabs there. You can go on and book a call with me in Calendly. My link is there. You could also send me an email at support@homeandhealing.com. And you can find me on all the socials: TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, And I have Home and Healing, the podcast is on YouTube.
Perfect. I love it.
So I hope I was able to share like a lot of tools and resources that
You
somebody
did.
can just take, and whether it helps you or someone you know, I hope that you just take what you can, leave the rest, and that the impact is there. That is my goal, is to just give you something that you can use to
Right.
help you or someone you know.
That's awesome. You definitely provided with a lot of information. I learned a lot off of this today. Like, you know, I personally do not have children. That's not in the cards for me, but it is such an eye opener to know that there are all of these signs, that there are other aspects to postpartum depression, because like I said, I don't think it gets enough awareness. I don't think it gets talked about enough. And I believe that what you are doing is, the outreach and getting yourself out there. I mean, like you said, you're going to Iceland. You're putting yourself out there to the world, and the world needs you, Amanda. And I'm
Oh,
so honored that you took the time to be with us today and share all of this. And I'm sure that there is so much more, which is why I encourage you all to, if you want to know more and you want to hear more, connect with Amanda, follow her, her socials, her YouTube, and book that call with her. You do not have to be alone. You are not alone. And we cannot do this without community and people that understand what we're going through.
absolutely. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share with your audience, Lori. It means a
Absolutely.
lot.
And you are always welcome to come back and share more.
Thank you.
Well, everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. Again, I will have all of the information on how to connect with Amanda in the description. You may also find my connection information as well. I will post in the description my Facebook. You can find me at Lori A. Murphy, Empowerment Coach for Women. I will also place my link if you want to schedule a call with me. If there's any way that I can be a guide in your journey, please know that I am here for you. And as well as, Journey of Self-Love, got to check out my ebook, Becoming Whole, a Path of Self-Love. All those links will be there. Check it out. Don't forget to subscribe. Never miss another episode. And with that, I'll close with this. Let go of fear and let your spirit shine. Lots of love. Thank you, Amanda.